Wow.
How can 197 votes, 1.9, have only 40 when 2.2 is having 100 and something? Can't you see something wrong with it? I want people to understand one man, one vote. You know?
You never truly know people until you take the time out to get to know people. We're moving on swiftly with the story. We're entering 97 again because of the general elections. But just before that, Goldenberg?
Goldenberg has come, and it has been revealed that Kamlesh Patni donated some money to Ford Kenya and gave it to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the father of multi-party democracy and protest in Kenya. He was a real truthful man, not those who call themselves, in action. He admitted in parliament, he made a personal statement and said, yes, a young man whom I thought was a patriotic Kenya came to me and said he wants to donate to the party, and donated 2 million shillings. I did not at that time know him. He was brought to me. So he admitted and he didn't know.
Wow.
Okay? So it's not that he was there covering for him or anything.
Yeah. But he made a statement about it.
Yeah, he admitted it.
But more so, how did that affect the economy in the country?
Goldenberg really affected. They siphoned money, made millionaires out of people while impoverishing Kenya. Okay? It was a scheme made by operatives outside government like Patni, working with people in treasury, working with government ministers to siphon money out of the government, abusing a compensation for export of gold. And knowing very well that Kenya didn't have gold to export, was still compensating, just hatching whatever. And up to these days, tenderpreneurs hatch plots, which they execute with people inside government to siphon money from government. Whether it's angro leasing or whatever, it's always tenderpreneurs with a briefcase finding insiders to work with. Yeah.
Man, okay, we're going to 97.
Yeah. Now, this is 97. It's going towards election. I was feeling very disillusioned. I was feeling that we had not achieved much as an opposition because we haven't been able to change much. And I'm even wondering, and I'm discussing with my father, I'm telling him, I'm thinking of not defending my seat. I was that disillusioned. And my father is telling me, no. Just for my sake, for me, just fight for it. You cannot give them your seat so easily after they've been bothering you like this. So around the same time, there's a clamor for reforms before elections. And the civil society, led by a group known as 4Cs, which was being headed by Kivutha Kibwana.
Yes.
And strengthened by the opposition in parliament, which had joined them in Ufungamano. I didn't go to Ufungamano myself, not because I disagreed with them, but because I was asking, what is our role as parliament, as this institution we came to? If reforms are needed, what can we do? So we formed a group, Inter-Party Parliamentary Group, IPPG, to enact minimum reforms as demanded by the opposition, by the civil society and opposition before the elections.
What kind of reforms are we talking about?
KANU grabbed it as a lifeline because the 4Cs and the Ufungamano group were coming close to toppling the regime.
Wow.
The run-ins with the government, the demonstrations and violent breaking of demonstrations, the discontent was very high in the country. So when we got together, we formed 2 committees, a constitutional committee and a legal reforms committee. The minimum reforms we enacted in IPPG, we removed detention without trial. We removed the law of sedition. We recommended its removal. It was also in the Constitution. We removed the clause and it was removed in the laws as well.
Yeah.
we removed the Chief's Authority Act, that the chief can come and arrest you in your house because you're having 9 people.
Chiefs were very powerful at the time.
We even removed the Traditional Liquor Act. We amended. It was not repealed. We amended that you can make traditional liquor if it's not without a permit, if it's not for sale, if it's for consumption at home.
Wow.
Okay? We removed a few things. And we also liberalized the airwaves. We said during campaign time, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation must give equal time to opposition and to government for campaigning. We did a few things to level the playing field. And therefore, and we also amended the constitution to say that the opposition, to increase the number of commissioners of IEBC from 10 to 22, and the opposition to have 10, while KANU had 12.
Yeah.
So we increased by 10 because KANU had already named theirs, hoping that by increasing commissioners, the elections would become more transparent.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that it was not so. It's not about commissioners, it's about the system. So it's not about Chebukati per se.
Yeah.
It is about the system. You can have another Chebukati by any other name. Yeah. So we need to check the system, how to renew the system, how to uproot the system that is facilitating this, the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You have to focus on the infrastructure and the values, not the person. Yeah. So we, IPPG, gave the lifeline to a government, and we now went to the elections with the minimum reforms which were enacted in a bipartisan manner by the entire parliament. Even the members of parliament who had gone to Fongwamano, including my party chief, Mwai Kibaki, who later became president, all trooped back to parliament. By the way, we also put in an amendment to outlaw discrimination, gender discrimination, by outlawing discrimination on the basis of sex, as it was called in the old constitution. And we also decreed that the 12 nominated seats for parliament and all the nominations in the local authority would be shared by both government and opposition in proportion to their votes. So for the first time, in 1998, the opposition was able to nominate members of parliament, members of local authority, and we had put that the nominated slots, in appointing people to nominated slots, gender parity, the principle of gender parity, parity is equality, will be observed. And here I want to heap praise on the longest serving Attorney General, now Attorney General Emeritus, Amos Wako. When I consulted him as he was drafting, he told me that if we use gender, the word gender equality, it will raise flags with the male-dominated parliament and they may throw it out. So he told me he will use the word parity. And most people, it bypassed most people. That's how we got that section 33A, whatever. So Wako contributed to bringing the gender dimension by use of words, and for the local authorities not to raise any flags, we used Latin, that it will be observed pari passu. You know, it will be similar to the whatever. So there was nominations of women and men throughout the local authorities in Kenya. So you could get, even if they did not observe the equality, like in parliament, there were 5 women to 7 men instead of 6. But you could get a nominated woman in a far-flung area. Yeah, so that's how gender quotas came in slowly.
But persons with disability wasn't yet added.
We didn't now go to disabilities.
That came later.
This now came with the 2010 constitution. But you can imagine minimum reforms being the only woman in the constitutional committee managing to push in those clauses with the Attorney General aiding and abetting my push. And the men in the committee asked me how the issue of equality is impacting elections, because we were doing minimum elections before. And I gave them how I was discriminated in party nominations and how many women have been discriminated in party elections and in party nominations. So since I was a champion of IPPG, they were easily convinced to let it go.
And, you know, I'm hearing your lawyer background and how it is beautifully affecting your role in politics.
Law really pairs well with politics. Remember, it's representation.
Yep.
Remember, representation has the issue of legislation and policy. And as a lawyer, you also will be able to look at legislation from a legal angle and also policy. So it goes on very well. And you can imagine me as an advocate appearing for a person in court, pleading their case,
Yep.
and me standing in parliament, articulating my people's case. It's very, very closely related.
My question then is, why don't other people in other professions decide to jump into this space? And
They do.
But the proportion is it's small. Accountants and lawyers are there.
There are many lawyers. There are now many accountants. Professionals are beginning to remember. When I entered parliament, it was a place for octogenarians. 70, 80.
Yes.
You see?
Octogenarians.
You see?
I like it, yep.
The people I found there, my father, who I removed from the seat, Geoffrey Kareithi, those were people going in their 80s. Lawrence Sagini, whom I found there, those were really old people.
Yep.
You see? So for me, who entered just at the dawn of being 35, because I was 35 that year I was running.
You were still AGPO.
And you know, 35, you even look like 30 or just under. I remember people used to ask me, what are you doing in parliament? You're too young for this. You know, because they'll not see the 35 on my face. Yeah. So we were the young crop in parliament with people like Akina Mukisa Kitui and all that.
Was Orengo there at the time with you?
Orengo came in with us, yes, that time. But Orengo was returning. You remember he was a member of parliament earlier.
Yeah.
He had gone into exile to avoid being arrested and arraigned on trumped-up charges by Kanu. He had returned at the dawn of Mount Party and reclaimed his Uganda seat. So he was there with us.
Okay.
Yeah. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o,
Yep.
a professor and a professional, you can see.
Okay, yes.
So people were beginning to come.
And even later on, William Mutunga, but then in a different light.
William Mutunga came not to parliament.
Not to parliament, but to, yes.
As a chief justice.
Yeah.
But I remember my classmates like Otieno Kajwang came one term after me. He came in 98. Njero Githai came 10 years later in 2002. So we encouraged our age mates to come in.
What did the elections at this time look like? What's the difference between the 92 and 97, 98 elections?
The 98 and 97, the difference is that there's been a bit of leveling of the playing field. So no licenses are needed for meetings. We are able to traverse different parts of the country. I actually believe 97 Kibaki won, not Moi, because they extended illegally. It was announced from State House that voting will continue on 31st of December.
What?
Voting was to be on 30th only.
But isn't that illegal to do that?
It is totally illegal. But
and does State House even have the power to do that, or is that the IBC's role?
Just the same way Ruto's government is directing the police what to do, and they have no authority. Directing things that you cannot directing parliament to pass bills, but people obey. So Moi's State House announced, when the intelligence told him he has lost to Kibaki, they announced a second day of voting, where they said that there are some parts of the country, there was El Nino,
yes,
that were impassable and voting is not complete. So they used that to inflate votes. So Moi is said to have had 2-point-something votes. I can't remember, but I know Kibaki had 1.9.
Yes.
So they inflated Moi's vote. Moi still had a majority. Although Kibaki had votes almost equal to him, DP had only 40 members of parliament. Why? because of the gerrymandering in creation of constituencies.
Wow.
How can 197 votes, 1.9, have only 40 when 2.2 is having 100 and something? Can't you see something wrong with it? I want people to understand one man, one vote. You know? There is an injustice we have never completely corrected. Okay? But we had done something unknown to many people, to the constitutional changes of IPPG, knowing that the constituencies were a product of gerrymandering. And we knew that even if we win, we will never have a majority with those constituencies. I had proposed, and they had accepted, an amendment without, you know, you don't justify. We are in a camaraderie and good feeling. We are working together for the first time in 5 years. Yes. Because we never used to even greet each other with some of those people. So I had proposed that to facilitate a president being able to appoint more people who could assist him, we changed the clause saying that a president will appoint ministers from among members of his party, yes, to say from among members of parliament. Oh. Because DP, if DP had been given its win, Kibaki would have found a lot of support from among members of parliament, and he would have been able to form government. Yes. So we had moved that, and nobody had seemed to notice. But lo and behold, they rigged again. So when you are doing legislation, you have to be on it.
And at this time, Ford Kenya and Ford Asilia fizzled out.
No, we are there. Kibaki is the official opposition. No, 97 he was not. Yes, we became the official opposition in 98. Official opposition is Matiba, who has ceased to come to parliament. Yes. And therefore, it is Kibaki, Wamalwa, and others. Yes. Kibaki and Wamalwa. Charity Ngilu comes in heavy. He's coming in 98. He's a member of DP, remember. We are all in Kibaki's party. So it's Kibaki and Wamalwa who are carrying the mantle of opposition. But Raila has already resigned his position in parliament to run. He has left Ford Kenya when there were wrangles of leadership, and yes, Wamarwa takes the baton after the death of his father. Raila has resigned to form a party called NDP, and therefore has gone back to elections. And I want people to listen to this, because an honorable person, if you choose to support, for instance, the UDA or the KK government, when you are in another party, when you are in ODM or in Wiper or in Jubilee, the honorable thing is to resign and seek mandate from your voters, because your voters gave you as Azimio and as your party. So Raila did the honorable thing. He resigned as member for Langata. That was what Kibera was called. And he ran on the newly formed NDP ticket. He won. So he came back as NDP. Yeah. And he was to participate now in the 1997 December elections as NDP. So yes, the leadership of the opposition includes Raila Odinga.
That's, so you once again you get in. Who was your competition at this time, or who are you running against? And was it a landslide now?
Yes, it's going to be a landslide, and I'm running against the late Hare Mogo, whom we christened in Kikuyu. Instead of Hare, Nare. Nare means in Keshogo, no. Nada. So his name, the morning we gave him no more, no, meaning no votes for him. Nare more. That's what my supporters had christened him. So my main competition was Hare Mogo. Yeah.